Lift the board up.
So I'm recording.
Yeah.
Put the board back a little bit towards you.
You've got to say Fragile X documentary, roll B, scene 1, take 1.
Oh God.
I know you have to say B.
I bet it's something.
We can say
Fragile X documentary, scene 1, take 1. Oh God, that hurt my ears.
Thank you.
Oh. Okay. Hi, I'm Emily, and I'm 27 years old, and I live in York. And I live with my mum and dad and Phoebe and my dog Ruby. She's crying at the minute. And I have a condition called Fragile X syndrome. Okay. I would describe myself as funny, kind, polite, hilarious, and can't remember the other one now. Funny and happy.
What makes you happy?
My music and my family and my friends. Everything really.
Lots of people say they don't really realise that Emily has any additional needs because she's very bright and bubbly and lively, and she's really chatty and sociable. But I suppose sometimes in conversation, you know, you might pick up that she seemed a bit younger than she really is. But I think people just think she's a very bright and bubbly and lively person. I hope that's what they think. When Emily was about 5, we went to see a paediatrician, and she thought that Emily might have Asperger's. So she sent us to see a clinical psychologist, and by that time we had another child, so we took our other daughter with us, and we hadn't been there very long, and he said, I can tell you now that, you know, your child doesn't have autism because of how she is with her sister. She's very caring and worrying about what she's doing and concerned about her, and generally in a loving way. So he kind of ruled it out then. I did wonder if it was something I had done when I was pregnant. We had an incontinent cat, and you can get toxoplasmosis from cat feces, and so I wondered if I'd had that and just hadn't had many symptoms, or I'd thought it was flu or something. And then I really struggled with breastfeeding, and she lost a lot of weight when she was first born. So I thought, oh, perhaps I had starved her of some essential fatty acid or something. And then we'd gone to a wedding when I was pregnant, and I didn't know I was pregnant, and I'd had too much wine. So yes, I always thought, was it something I'd done? And then because I suppose we first picked up on problems around the time that she had her MMR, and because at the time there was a lot of things in the news about MMR causing autism, which of course isn't true, but at the time, because it was a big news thing, you wondered, well, is it that? Have I done that? Have I made my perfect child, or given her all these problems? When I had my second daughter, I still didn't know that Emily had Fragile X syndrome, and so when it came to the time for her to have a MMR vaccine, it was a really difficult thing to think of. But I thought, well, I'd rather have another child with the problems that Emily has than a child that dies of measles or mumps. You know, I would never forgive myself if that happened to them. So for me it was quite a simple thing. And I took my second daughter into the surgery and I knew she was absolutely perfect. And I knew that I might be changing it, but I did it anyway. And I would do it again. And anyway, it wasn't that. We all know it wasn't that. But, you know, I didn't at the time, but I wouldn't change it. I would have still done it. When Emily was about 4 or 5, we used to go to the hospital every week. She used to go for occupational therapy. And there was a sign on the wall at the hospital and it said, "Do you have a son with these problems?" And there was a big long list of things, and there were all the things that Emily had. But it said it was a condition that affected boys. It was Fragile X. And at the time they didn't realise that girls could get it too, could be affected by it. And it just stuck in my mind because it was literally like a list of the things that Emily struggled with. Delayed speech, short attention span, poor motor skills, poor numeracy skills, dislike of eye contact, this hand flapping, which Emily didn't really do very much, just usually a little bit sometimes when she was excited, but for some children that was a big thing. And then when she was about 15, we had a computer by then, because obviously when she was little, you know, we didn't have a computer. And one night I thought, I'm just going to Google Fragile X. And my husband was out at the time. And I printed off this list about this thing about Fragile X, because by that time they'd realised that girls could be affected too. And when he came home, I'd highlighted all the things and I said, look, this must be it. So he said, well, yeah, I think it might be. So we made an appointment to take to the GP so we could get her screened. And sure enough, that's what it was. And even though we were expecting it, it was still, I don't know, it was kind of a bit of a bolt from the blue, really. It felt like that, and we just sat and looked at each other, and it was because it had implications for our other daughter, and it's difficult to say it was relief, but at least then we knew there wasn't anything we could have done. It was always going to be that way.
Oh, look, Emily, that's when you got your trophy.
I know.
Oh, that was really special.
I still got that. I still got that little trophy in my
That was...
I can't remember.
When Emily started secondary school.
Don't cry. You're not crying.
No. I knew that they had this trophy for outstanding personal achievement, and I thought that was the one thing that she could get, because if she tried really hard, she could do that. And then we had a letter in the post, and it said that she'd been awarded it. This was about 5 years later, and I just thought, I knew she was going to get that, and she did. And that was just the best night. It was so lovely. Everybody was so proud of her.
Don't cry.
And all the other mums and things were coming up and saying, you know, hugging me and everything, because they all knew and knew
Don't cry.
that it was a really big thing.
Don't
And
cry.
it really was.
I know it was.
And Gran and Grampy came up specially,
Yeah.
didn't they? And the headmaster made such a lovely speech, just saying about how Emily had perfected the art of being blonde, I remember he'd said. And just all the things that she'd achieved, and how she'd done so well in her work experience, and how she was always happy and smiling, and just a pleasure to have around.
Louise!
I don't think I was actually really that bothered about being a carrier. I mean, it is what it is. You know, I didn't know about it, so I couldn't have done anything about it. I might, if I hadn't already had another child, then I might have done things differently, possibly with regards to a second pregnancy. So in some ways, it didn't really matter to me, because I'd had my family. My main concern was for my daughters, obviously, because it potentially could have affected their family planning, you know, because we didn't know whether our other daughter was a carrier. So it had lots of implications, and then being a carrier itself comes with associated health problems potentially, but so does life, really. You never know what's around the corner. So I'm not going to just sit and worry about, oh, I might get this and I might get that, because I might get lots of other things that aren't related to being a carrier of Fragile X. It just is what it is. I had an early menopause, which is a carrier trait. I was only in my 30s, which didn't really matter to me. It was very difficult because I had a young baby and a child with additional needs. So it was a really challenging time. But then it's a pretty challenging time anyway. So just pile it all on, get it all over with, and that side's done. That box is ticked. We wanted our other daughter to be tested, mainly because we thought if she had a premature menopause, it would impact on her, you know, family planning. And I mean, I had my children when I was in my 20s, but that's quite uncommon now. And, you know, she would want to have a career and possibly delay starting a family. So it was really from that point of view. And when I broached the subject with her, she said, well, I'm not bothered if I've got Fragile X, if I'm a carrier for Fragile X, because I wouldn't mind if I had a child like Emily, which is lovely. But I said, well, yes, but you might not be able to have that child or any child. So really, that's why I wanted her to know. So, you know, when she went and was screened and came back as negative, it was just the best day, because I knew we could just put that to bed. Didn't have to think about that anymore.
Okay. It's a bit nervous. Oh, no, I don't want to.
You don't need to be nervous.
Yeah, I know, but I'm very nervous today. I don't know why. I'm having it. Well, I'm having a. I can't remember my words. I'm having a coffee morning today. I can't say anything, Mum. I'm really nervous today.
Don't be nervous. You sound good.
Of course you can.
Okay, I'm having a coffee morning.
You're having a coffee morning?
I'm having a coffee morning for Fragile X syndrome today. So that's why all the cakes are there.
The Fragile X Society provide information and practical guidance to both support and empower individuals and families that are living with Fragile X. The main way that we do that is via our national helpline, also research, and so that we can learn more about Fragile X as a condition, but also how to most effectively provide support to people living with all aspects of Fragile X. I think there's a misunderstanding that if someone's got a genetic condition, you'll be able to see it immediately. And that's not typically the case. One person with Fragile X is one person with Fragile X, and there's so much variation between. I think part of the barrier as well is trying to educate people that this isn't a static label. We're not trying to put labels on people.
I think, or if they present you.
I think receiving this diagnosis can be really overwhelming, and it feels like life is completely different. But your child, yourself, your loved one, you're the same person today as you were the day before. You're really not alone. We have a wonderful community that's really active, you know, online, and we also have events in person. So kind of when you're ready, reach out, we're here. So we do all sorts of fundraising events. One of the things that we're most proud of in recent years at the Society is we did a sort of joint fundraising and awareness raising campaign where we got all our community to collectively walk the total distance around the UK. We have all sorts of amazing people doing marathons, jumping out of planes. We have people taking on all sorts of challenges for us. And I think the crucial thing about all of that is the fundraising, but it is that talking with people. And, you know, as a charity, we can put out those general messages, but it really sticks when people tell their personal story. I think that's when people really engage, and it really makes a difference.
Everybody's heard of ADHD, everybody's heard of autism. Why hasn't everybody heard of Fragile X syndrome? We're still constantly confronted with, I've never heard of that, or Fragile X syndrome, what's that, fragile what? And it's the leading cause of inherited learning disability in boys. So why doesn't everybody know about this? I think having a label, it can be a help and a hindrance, really. It can be a help in that it will make it easier to have access to the support and help that you need. But then nobody really wants to have a label. Emily doesn't like having Fragile X syndrome. She doesn't like that label. She likes to help spread awareness about it, but, you know, when we had to tell her that's what it was awful. You know, she was so upset. So we just told her it was like the X Factor, you know, because the X Factor was big on TV. So we were saying, you've just got the X Factor. And that kind of pacified her for a bit, but nobody really wants to have a label. I didn't want it to be a big thing like Emily's got this, because Emily was still Emily. Nothing had changed. You know, she was just as lovely as she was before. If you're just receiving a diagnosis, I would just say, you know, there are worse things, you know, that can happen. You're going to have a lovely, kind, sweet child. Yes, there might be challenges ahead, but you'll have a special child, but special in a nice way as well as special in a difficult way.
This is like a Fragile X wristband where they spread awareness. Like every October, they spread awareness about Fragile X. So it's like no, and I got a T-shirt. I can't remember who it is, but it's just to wear it all the time. Because I'm born with it, and I can just spread awareness about it, and it's not like big of a deal. But like people who want to learn about it, who want to spread awareness, and who want to be themselves, you know, they can just do it. Like it hasn't stopped me from playing tennis. It hasn't stopped me from making really amazing friends, and it hasn't stopped me from being on telly. So it hasn't stopped me from doing that. So I think people should be aware. Like if they've got. I think people should just spread awareness about it. Even if their kids have got it, you know, they should just spread awareness and just be themselves and just, you know, be, you know, like if people who find it difficult, if their kids have got it, then, you know, they find it really stressful, or they find it tough being born with it. But hey, they're lucky. They've got kids who've got this thing who've never even heard of it, but you know. They just get on with it, they just deal with it, and it's the way it is. So I've dealt with it, and I've dealt with it for a long time. It's kind of weird that my sister doesn't have it. It kind of feels a bit like, oh, she's lucky that she hasn't got it, but like, that's a bit weird. I love my mum and dad so much. Like, you know, I always give them they always give me advice, and they always be there for me, you know, they're always there for me. If I have a little bit of a problem or I get upset or anything, they're just treat me the same. They know that I've got it, they know that they know that I've got it, but I just don't mind people doing that, but you know.
Now that Emily's an adult, I don't know if you wouldn't perhaps look at her and think, oh, she's doing, you know, she's behaving in a way that's Fragile X related. But because we know her, you know, we see that she doesn't like to make eye contact. I didn't realise actually when Emily was a child that she didn't make eye contact with people, because she always made eye contact with me. But apparently she doesn't with other people, and she still doesn't. There isn't anything really that's not good about Emily. She's just the sweetest thing. She never sees anything bad in anybody. She's kind, she's helpful, she's funny, she's lovely. You know, there's this talk about cures for Fragile X, and it's like, why would I want to cure her? You know, because I don't want to change her. I'd like to make life easier for her. If I could make her able to count money and pay for things and work out how to get a mortgage and work out how to pay bills, I'd love it if she could do all that, but I wouldn't want to change anything else about her. I wouldn't want to change her personality. And, you know, the thing that makes her Emily is possibly partly because she's got Fragile X syndrome, so I wouldn't want to risk taking that away. I really hope that Emily will be able to live an independent life if that's what she wants. If she wants to stay here with us forever, she can stay here with us forever. I'll be happy with that. But I wanted to have what she wants, and if she wants to have her own house and fall in love, which I know she would love, I really hope that she meets the right boy. You know, he'd be a really lucky boy. She's a lovely girl.
And if you could give Emily one bit of life advice, what would it be?
I would say, Emily, don't change. Just perfect as you are.